So welcome everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform weekly community call with Microsoft speakers. And that what it means is that we have those people who are actually creating the capabilities and functionalities, as in product managers, engineers, and cloud advocates doing their demos on this call, which is happening every single Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And we always have a different set of topics which were covered based on the product groups which are offering their demos within this call. My name is Asa Juvonen. I'm a principal product manager in Microsoft 365 platform areas, and I'll be your host today. Obviously, the real stars of the day will be the demo presenters. Now, we will start with an introduction slides again, going through some of the, repeating some of the assets which is available for you to get started in Microsoft Cloud. And then we'll go through the news. We'll take a together mode picture with everybody who's willing to enable their camera at that time. You can absolutely enable a camera already, but at least on that time. And then we go to the actual stars of today, who will be S Manoj Kumar and then Bob Sherman. So S will start with a AI 0-1, build your own RAG-based semantic search by using an API run prompts. We'll move on that one, and then after that, Bob Sherman is going to kind of continue the journey with what Sebastian Levert actually showed last week. So if you haven't seen that, that was more on getting started with API plugins on Microsoft 365 Copilot, and in this time, then Bob will not precisely continue the story, but it will be a bit more advanced topic, which is, okay, so these are API plugins. Those should be probably secured somehow, and we're going to secure them using Entra Id. And how do we do that? How do we actually make that then work together with Microsoft 365 Copilot is really the story of today. Looking forward on that demo as well. Now, before we go to the actual demos, quick recap on all of the different assets which we have available for you to get started in Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. First of all, our YouTube channel. We publish videos on this channel every single day. Last week, I think we published 15 videos. So this is really a channel where we're sharing a lot of different assets and guidance across makers and builders and low-code, no-code, pro-code topics. So you want to subscribe there. There's going to be videos every single business day throughout the week, and all of the community call recordings are getting published there as well. On top of that, we have our LinkedIn page and LinkedIn group for discussions and updates. Really easy way of staying up to date on what's happening. We do share, for example, the community agendas and recording notes and all of that stuff in those assets as well. So you are up to date on all of the different assets which are available. Now, we are in Twitter, of course, as well. But the Twitter is a bit quiet nowadays, so more and more communications has transitioned to the LinkedIn, and that's why we're promoting those LinkedIn options here as well. Now, we do have open source assets available in GitHub, a lot of different repos in the multiple different organizations, which makes it really hard to find the relevant sample for you or relevant solution, and that's why we have these sample galleries, and they're really targeted to have a one location where you can easily go and find the relevant sample for you based on your business requirements and based on your business interest. So if you go AKMS community samples, you'll find a nice search option to query the relevant samples for you to get started in Microsoft 365 or in Power Platform. All of the URLs at AKMS community home URL. Now, we do have quite a lot of community calls. This is the Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time community call every single Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time, except when it's a holiday season. So we'll always break out this call for a summertime and also for wintertime breaks. So making sure that the presenters who are Microsoft employees can have also an option to take some time off. On top of that, we have the Power Platform monthly community call, which is typically community presenters. Like that is happening this month to tomorrow. So tomorrow, Wednesday is 16th of October is the Power Platform monthly community call, which is really powered by the community for the community. So community demos and community organized and run through event as well. On top of that, Office Add-ins monthly call, more for Microsoft employees, sharing again updates on Office Add-in side of the house. And then we have our 7 a.m. Thursday 7 a.m. Pacific time Thursday series, which is either Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call or Viva Connection and SharePoint Framework community call. That's happening every single Thursday, 7 a.m. It's either one of those calls because they're both bi-weekly. Now, this call series actually is not canceled to holiday season. It doesn't matter if it's Thanksgiving, if it's the eve of the Christmas, if it's the New Year Eve, whatever, these calls will be actually executed. And it might be that on maybe in the New Year's Eve, we will not have a live demo, but at least we'll be there. So you can always join on those calls. We'll be available to have a discussion, and we'll help you with any questions as well in any way we can as part of the community effort. Now, for downloading the recurrent invites are at AKMS Community Calls URL, and then you can always catch the agendas and details on what's going to be covered the week before from the meetup. So AKMS Community Meetup is the location for that one. Really, really great service as well to know advance what will be the agenda for this call. So this call's agenda was actually shared there advance, so you don't have to worry about what will they cover something interesting, and do I need to reschedule? Should I just catch up on the recording? You can actually use the meetup service for that option. Now, for a lot of these calls as mentioned, we actually do welcome community demos and community powered demos, and easiest way to sign up for those is just to fill in this form. So fill in AKMS community request demo. We'll then contact you. We'll get you scheduled on the right call based on the topic what you're planning to cover and based on your availability and availability within the call slots. Super, super easy thing. It doesn't have to be a rocket science. It doesn't have to be even open source. You could actually tell a story of how did you learn to use, for example, Copilot Studio or Power Apps, or let's say Microsoft Teams App Store, whatever. But really sharing those learnings between the other people in the community. The only thing is we don't welcome product demos here, because those would be selling. And there's a bit of a different objective within the community. We want to share learnings, but not sell products. So be careful on how do you position the demo, but definitely always sign up and we'll get you scheduled and we can have a discussion on what are you planning to demo as well. Now, we do have a lot of assets to get started on the Microsoft Cloud. We have our Microsoft 365 developer program. The rules for that one has been a bit changed. Who qualifies on that program? Well, I'll come back on that one in a second. And then we have a lot of Learn modules available for Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. So a lot of material which is free for you to take advantage. Now, the developer program used to be completely free for everybody within the world, which was a bit of a problem. So what it actually meant then is that the evil people actually started using that program for their benefit as well. So we needed to change the rules who will qualify for that program. And that's why it's not necessarily free and not everybody qualifies and gets the free tenant. And not an optimal thing. And we're looking into alternative options of cutting down the cost for anybody who wants to get started on Microsoft 365 development or the Microsoft Cloud development. Now, a lot of people still qualify on that program. There's a certain criteria which you fall into. If you are, for example, if you own a Visual Studio subscription, if you are working in a partner organization, you might qualify to that program as well. So please double check that. Now, if you don't qualify, there is a relatively cost-friendly option, which is that you can actually buy your own tenant. And the cool thing about the buying an own tenant is that nobody can take that away from you as long as you or your company keeps on paying that. The developer tenant renews automatically if you use it for development. If you don't use it for development for a certain time period, it will actually get destroyed or removed. These tenants will never do that. So $6 per month, you will actually get a normal Microsoft 365 tenant with all of the out-of-the-box production-ready capabilities, and nobody will take that away from you. So it's a really kind of a cost-friendly option. We do understand that there's some money involved in this, which might be a bit of a burden for some of you, and there is an ongoing discussion still on the options of cutting that cost down potentially for developer-oriented audience, but I don't have exact details on that one. Hopefully we'll get a bit cheaper options in the future. Most likely there will be still some sort of a money structure involved because that money which people need to pay is one way of getting identified who is the person who actually owns this tenant. So we don't have unknown tenants owned by unknown people who might be malicious and bad people, and then they start using those tenants in a wrong way against people. That's really the concern there as well. Cool. On the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform shows, we do have our PMP Weekly show, which was unfortunately discontinued, starting from 17th of September. That was the last episode with me and Waldek. We're looking into establishing a new show relatively soon. Might actually get past the holiday season. There's so much happening right now, again, on this time of the year. Mondays and Microsoft with Caruana and Heather is happening bi-weekly on Mondays, and then the Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast happens every now and then. A lot of interesting shows to stay up to to date on what's happening within the cloud. Now, I mentioned already the samples. There's 2,100, more than 2,100. That's the right way of saying that in English. More than 2,100 samples available for Microsoft and community at AKMS Community Samples. Every single one of them is MIT licensed, so you can actually take a look on them. If you download them, you're able to modify them, you're able to start using them, and if you provide an SLA for them, that's completely fine. All of the samples are provided as is, so there's no SLA directly from Microsoft or for community for them, but they're there for give you an inspiration on the art of possible, a starting point maybe for the awesome solution what you're planning to implement. Now, as you find the sample in a GitHub, you might be wondering that, hey, wait a minute, this is in GitHub. How does this work? I don't know. Or maybe you're like, oh, I'm not sure how any of this contributing community stuff actually works. And that's why we have our Sharing is Caring initiative, and directly from LA or Hollywood, we have David Warner to talk about what this is all about.
Yes, Vince, I am on the streets of Hollywood right now talking to our contributors. It is amazing. I'm just kidding. But we do have amazing contributors, and we want you to use the samples and contribute to the samples. So Sharing is Caring is here to provide you that guidance. These sessions are live. They're hands-on. They're safe space. What does all that mean? It means that we're going to make a contribution together. You're going to see how to navigate that hub of Gits, that GitHub hubs. You're going to make a contribution together. It's going to count as a contribution, which is going to get you a badge we'll talk about in a moment. And you're going to do it in a safe space, which means you can ask any and all questions because we don't record the sessions. So absolutely join. Be on the lookout. We are getting them scheduled for late October, early November. Thank you for your patience, just trying to figure out the whole scheduling thing. And it is absolutely free, no charge. And we do it together as a community. It is a lot of fun. A lot of people have joined. Even if you just want to join to make fun of Hugo and I, that's completely okay. All right, buckle up, everybody, as Sanford said. Now, that's right. We're taking off even more into the community with our recognition program, and that is a program that is powered by Credly. That same Credly that creates those accredited badges that you can associate to your LinkedIn profile, put on your blog, put on your resume, show to your clients, show to your managers that you are making a difference. We do this because we want to make sure that you're being recognized for the amazing work that you're doing in the community. It is absolutely free, no cost to you. We do cover those costs for you by way of the community programs, and so we want you to opt in, which you can do at ak.ms/community/recognition. We've got a lot of new badges coming out this fall, some that have just released. We've got our Promptober we're currently in, Hacktoberfest. You can get those too, only available in October. We've got our Refresh Rangers, which is focusing on SPFX right now, SPFX Toolkit, Prompt Pro, so many. We've got our Season of Getting, which will be coming back, and our Slice of Samples coming up in the near months. So get involved, everybody. Again, join the Sharing is Caring. Opt in for the recognition program. We love you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you. And Vesa, back to you in the Finland studios.
Excellent. Thank you, LA Studios, Finland taking over. Technology is amazing. This is really, really cool. Works so well. Now, quick recap on all of the different events which are happening. So TechCon 365, previously known as EduCon 365, is happening still one more time this year. Seattle and DC already happened. Dallas is happening in November 11th to 15th with a pre-day workshops and then the actual events. Great opportunity of catching up with the community. Now, we also have Ignite coming up in Chicago. The on-site registration is already closed because it's completely sold out, but every one of us can actually join also remotely for free on the Ignite. If you go ignitemicrosoft.com, you can register, and then you'll get access on the agenda whenever that's getting published, and you're able to see all of the on-demand and also the online sessions which are happening throughout the Ignite week. It's going to be really a lot of news across the stack as well. Now, on top of that, we have the European SharePoint conference happening in 2nd to 5th of December 2024. So that's at www.sharepointeurope.com. I think it's called nowadays European SharePoint Microsoft 365 Azure Conference, if I remember the full conference name. But they chose to use the ESBC as their term because they're known to be the European SharePoint Conference in the past as well for many years. So thank you for them on that. Now, on top of that, the European Collaboration Summit is happening in the Düsseldorf, so 26th to 28th of May. But that's not all. It is actually 3 different events. It's European Collaboration Summit, European AI and Cloud Summit, and European Biz App Summit happening all together with more than 3,000 attendees at Düsseldorf, 26th to 28th of May. Great venue. A lot of interesting events and interesting sessions already submitted for there as well. We will do a session selections on this one pretty soon, so you will see then the agendas getting published. On top of that, there's a lot of cool events happening all around the world during this week and next week and week after. So if you go to communitydays.org, you can see a lot of events like the Collab Days Johannesburg in South Africa, or Collab Days New England happening on 18th to 19th this week, or Community Days in Collab Days in, I'm not seeing that. Belgium is happening this week as well. That's not actually listed there. Not sure why, but Scottish Summit is happening this week. So a lot of different community events happening all around the world. Some of them might have a cost. Some of them are free. Some of them are hybrid. Some of them are in person. But please do take advantage of these great opportunities of meeting other people within the community. There are other people like you interested in building capabilities and experiences within the Microsoft Cloud. Now, before we go to get more pictures and moving on to the demos of today, quick recap on the news from Microsoft side. Pretty slow week. Few events getting called out. For example, Meet the Makers is happening tomorrow. That it will be recorded as well if you cannot make that one online. And a lot of other events and news happening as well. Not a massive news week. It's still pretty quiet as we're heading closer to Ignite and the autumn's conference season. We'll definitely get more and more things to announce as well. All the time, new stuff is getting released. A lot of cool things. Now, on top of that, we also have our Copilot prompts. Copilot prompt is really designed to share Copilot prompts. So what are the things how you can use the Microsoft 365 Copilot to make it beneficial for you? So anybody who has the access on Microsoft 365 Copilot can then use the Copilot prompts to learn how to be more efficient and how to increase the productivity with Copilot. And the prompt of the week this week is from RC Commerce, and it's a pretty long prompt, but it actually is a really cool prompt of actually outputting information based on the user, based on in an HTML format, and actually that formatting is really nicely done within the Copilot, and then you're able to pasting the output and use that within whatever means is needed. So really good example of the things what we can do with the Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, before we go to the actual then stars of the day, let's do a quick together mode picture. Let's see, I completely forgot about switching the view. So let's go to together mode and enable the camera and moving this one in here, crossing fingers that the together mode is starting okay. Excellent. Now I do want to make sure that I'm able to find, where do I find, how do I change the view? There we go. More options. Where do we change the scene? I can't find where to change the scene. Oh, there's the scenes. Now it go. They keep on changing the button location, even for Microsoft employees. It's already always difficult to find them. Excellent. We do have 50 seats in the room. I'm on the back row. Todd is on the back row. And the familiar faces, Kirk is on the middle. Now we're changing to a nice auditorium view. April is in the front and the middle row. A lot of familiar faces. 50 seats in a room. Let's wait a few more seconds before we start recording. And I guess maybe we are fully booked already. So let me do the recording and let's do some hand waving, everybody. Hands wave, smiling. Yay! Awesome to have you on a call. Awesome to have you. Smiles are always good. Thank you for joining. Great to have you in this call, and we'll share a GIF animation in the social media for this one. Thank you. Great to have you here. Excellent. Cool. Let me then move that away from here, and we'll save the recording in a second. But then it's time to move to the actual stars of today. So we have S Manoj Kumar talking about a really cool rack-based semantic search solution, and then we move into Bob German's demo after that. But S Manoj, you're in the call. I saw you there.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Visa. Yeah.
Excellent.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. All good.
Yes. I think there's a slight lag, but yeah, I'm able to hear you. Thanks, Visa. I'll share my screen if that's okay.
Yep, definitely.
I hope everybody can see my screen.
Yep, I can confirm that. Take it away. Really good.
Yeah, thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Manoj Kumar. I'm a product manager, and I primarily work with customers on their AI extensibility solutions. First of all, super thanks to everyone for joining this call. Today, I'd be showcasing a demo about building a RAG-based semantic search while using an API for running the prompts, right? But before I go to the demo, I would like to take a quick minute to talk about the solution samples and how we can leverage it. So, the solution samples that are being showcased in these sessions can really help us gain a base knowledge about AI extensibility and also give us an understanding of what is possible. The other key pointer is these samples are a lift and shift solutions that could be used in our tenants and also gives us a peek into the pro code solutioning on how each technology is connected and the processes that are running in the background. So it's a very good way to get started on the AI extensibility development journey. Now, without further ado, I'll kind of move into the next important section, the main showcase. Yes. And in today's demo, we are going to see how a RAG-based semantic search works. Uh, the first question generally that comes to the forefront is, what is RAG, right? Now, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. The idea behind RAG is to improve the accuracy and the relevance of the generated response. Now, how does it work? Before generating a response, the model searches for external knowledge or connected data source for relevant information based on the input query. Then the retrieved information is used as additional context to the generative model. And then the generative model uses both original input and the retrieved information to generate a final contextually enriched response. Uh, RAG is particularly used when the model needs to provide factual answers or response to queries that require up-to-date information or domain-specific knowledge. For example, in healthcare industries, it could be used to get relevant information from the research papers. It has varied applications across industries. However, in this demo, we will see a similar scenario that could be replicated in different industries. Uh, in this demo, we will be uploading a document to the blob storage, convert the content into vector embeddings, and then store that vector embeddings into Cosmos DB. And using an API, we will run the prompts to get the best responses that is possible through the RAG-based model. To do this, we have used Azure OpenAI, Azure Cosmos DB, and Node.js. Now, let us see the demo in the action. Meanwhile, I'll give a commentary of what is happening. So here we see we have created a resource group, and inside that resource group, we have a container, a blob container called sample work items. So whenever we upload a file, a PDF or a text or a Word file into this particular container, it kind of converts the data into the vector embeddings. Let's see that in action.
I have to say, not sure if the audio is intended to come through, but there's no audio for the sign.
Yeah. So I'll explain the context here. So
Okay.
what's happening here is we have uploaded a file into the blob storage, and the storage then converts the files into vector embeddings and stores them into the Cosmos DB. So whenever there is a file that is uploaded into the blob storage, it automatically understands, okay, the file has been added to this particular storage, and we have to convert the content that is inside this particular file into vector embeddings. So all of this happens automatically once you upload the file into the blob storage. Here we see the file is being converted and into a vector embeddings. And before I move on, I'll quickly pause here and talk a bit about vector embeddings. So vector embeddings are mathematical representations of words, phrases, and sentences. So these embeddings capture the semantic information, meaning they can represent how closely related two pieces of information are based on their meaning. For example, the words king and queen will have a vector embeddings that are closer to each other when compared to words like king and a computer, because king and queen is used in more common knowledge and in one sentences more often than not. So the vector embeddings have a closer relationship to the content that is more relative to each other. So that's what we are doing here. We are actually converting the text into vector embeddings and storing them into the Azure Cosmos DB. Now we are actually using an API to run a search query and get a response. This could be done in two ways. One is we could use the browser experience, as well as we can use a Postman experience where we can make a GET request. So let's see that in the action right now. As we see here, we are writing what is life insurance in the GET query. And what happens is we get a response. I'll quickly pause here. We'll get a response which is actually matching with the query. So we get a response of what life insurance is and which file the content is coming from, and also the citation for that particular file, and a similarity score. So similarity score kind of gives a premium importance because it kind of matches the closest distance between the query and the response. So any similarity score that is above 90 or relative to 90% kind of matches to the response and the query that has been stated to that particular response. Now, if we see here, we have actually instructed the program to give top 5 responses, although it might not be in line with the response. So there's a drastic difference between the similarity score we see with the first response and the second response, because there is not much similarity to the question that we have asked here to the answer we have gotten over here. So since we have actually programmed it to give the top 5 answers, it anyways gives the top 5 answers that it could find. And we have the opportunity to showcase the best one that is based on the similarity score. Quickly move forward. Yeah. So here we also have a similar experience, but we are using a browser experience where we are typing the same query, what is life insurance, and we could see what kind of information that we are getting. And we could use this particular information in showcasing in the chatbots that we are building and etc. Right. So we could usually take this information and make it as a response in that particular chatbots as well. So I'll quickly move on to the actual action that is happening inside the code. I'll quickly pause this video and share the screen, which talks about the code and what's going in behind this particular program. Right now, first up, we have a block trigger event grid.js. This script is configured to listen for events related to files that are stored in the Azure Blob storage. Whenever a new file is added or updated in a specific folder, this code automatically gets executed basis on the event. So as we have seen earlier in the demo, whenever there is a new file that is being added to the blob storage, it immediately converts it into the it immediately converts it into embeddings and stores into the Cosmos DB. The process of triggering happens in this file, and whenever a new file is detected, this particular Azure function gets triggered and following handler gets triggered, where it kind of understands what is the blob name and the blob size. And then it actually goes into the, and it calls a function called initiate embeddings, which kind of starts the process of creating embeddings. Now, this is a good segue to talk about where all the actions are happening. So we have a file called embed functions over here. And this particular file kind of is the main file that actually does all the action. It basically takes the text that is stored in the document. It extracts the text that in the document and converts into smaller chunks that are more easily can be managed for vector embeddings. And then this particular content is shared with OpenAI and to get the vector embeddings. And once we get the vector embeddings, we actually have them stored on the Cosmos DB. So all of this action is happening through this file. I'll quickly talk about a few functions that are responsible for this kind of a behavior. Right now, we have a function called split text. What it does is it kind of splits the longer sentences into a smaller file, so that smaller chunks of data, so that it could be easily managed for the generating the embeddings. Now, as we have seen, we have initiate embeddings. So initiate embeddings takes care of the file extensions like TXT or PDF and Word document, whichever we have configured there, and reads the document, extracts the text, and makes it ready to parse the data. And once we have the content ready and parsed, we will be using this particular function called get embeddings async. And this function actually makes a call to OpenAI service to consider this content and give back a vector embedding response. So once we get the vector embedding response, we kind of use these embeddings and store it in the Cosmos DB. So all of the action, right from reading the file to finally storing the vector embeddings into a Cosmos DB, happens in this particular embed functions.js file. Now, we have one more important file that kind of actually defines what happens with the search query. So whenever a user is actually sharing a prompt, it kind of this particular file gets invoked, and what it does is it basically does the same thing. It places an OpenAPI call and tries to give this particular content and asks a vector embedding in return. And this particular vector embedding is then used to search the similar response that is more closer to the number that we get. So we use a function called semantic search document async, where what we do is once we get the vector embedding score for that particular user query, we try to match with the closest response that has the shortest distance between the query and the response. And we have defined to give 5 responses that are ordered in a similarity score basis. So the highest similarity score would be at the top. So as we have seen in the demo, we could see that there were scores of 90%, 70%, etc. So all of that action is being taken in this particular file. So this is a small demo. I wanted to show how a RAG-based model works, and I'd be happy to take any questions and helping out in any queries that we have on this implementation. And I'd like to thank for this opportunity to Vesa and everybody and patiently listening for this call. And I hope this session is really helpful for all of you. Yeah, back to you, Vesa. Thank you.
Thank you, TS. Really, really cool. So awesome to see how it's actually being built and all of those scenarios. And again, it's open source. It's available in the GitHub right now today, so you can download the code and have a look on that. Even though you might not be able to run it, but understanding the baseline capabilities is always important. So you understand the art of possible. So thank you, TS, for showcasing that. Really, really cool. Awesome stuff. Now, let's then go to Bob German. Bob is kind of talking about securing API plugins for Microsoft 365 Copilot with Entra Id, and we're right on schedule. This is really, really cool.
As awesome.
Long as we can, yeah.
No, wait, and then my presentation is only 3 hours, so we should be fine.
Okay.
So thanks everyone, and that was a great RAG presentation as well. So I'm going to be talking about Microsoft 365 Copilot. Let me share my screen. And let me see. Oh, I almost forgot. So now that I'm in the spirit of it, let's go ahead and look into this. So you may have seen this slide before. This is Donna Sarkar showed this at Ignite last year. And there's really the three ways of working with Copilot for Microsoft 365: adopt, extend, and build. So I'm going to start with a few slides just to kind of help navigate the demos when we get there. Adopt, you want to use aka.ms/community-prompts. That is where, if you want to just use Copilot out of the box, you can get a lot of inspiration and great ideas from the PnP prompts library. However, if you're coding, you're probably talking about building Copilot agents, and today's presentation is focused more on the pro code side and specifically on the extend side. So the difference here, right, is extend Microsoft Copilot. You're building something called declarative agents. You're using the AI that's built into Microsoft 365, and you don't have to supply the AI engine or the orchestration. Whereas build your own is where you build, we call a custom engine agent, and you're going to use Copilot you're going to use Azure OpenAI or some service, some large language model, much like the previous demo, to drive that kind of a chatbot experience. So today I'm talking specifically about extend, declarative agents, pro code, and then how do you authenticate those things, right? So you may have seen this slide before. It just shows how the RAG pattern is actually working here. So thanks for teeing that up. Basically, you've got your tenant. All the content is there. Microsoft 365 Copilot is using that content to answer prompts. And you can also, through a declarative agent, add something called a plugin, which will allow you to call an API at the same time. So you'll ask a question or you'll make a prompt that Copilot will say, hey, wait a minute, I don't know the answer, but I know how to get the answer. There's a plugin. I can call a REST API. These are just standard REST APIs using HTTP requests. And I can get maybe the answer that way, right? So that's really what we're talking about. When you package one of these up, it looks just like a Teams or an M365 app. You have a zip file with a manifest inside, a couple of icons, and then we're going to look at all these files. A declarative agent file that says, hey, this is kind of your personality. These are the instructions. These are the different SharePoint or graph connectors or other things that you can use in answering questions. And then you can put what they call actions, which are also called plugins, where you say, look, you can take action by calling this API. And to do that, you've got two more files. One is a plugin JSON file, and the other one is the OpenAPI or Swagger file. So just to try to give you a little bit of background. Now, the thing is, how often is that API going to be completely anonymous and unsecured? And I would say maybe the answer to that is never to almost never, right? I mean, as soon as you start, maybe if you have even a weather forecast, you're going to have an API key, right? And if you want to access some business data, guaranteed there's going to be authentication on that API. They're not going to just make it available for random people to go in and read the internal content of your business, right? So Copilot supports three options for this. One is anonymous. Great for demos because it's very easy to set up, but not really realistic. The second option is an API key. You've probably seen these before where you're given a key that you put in each request, and then it knows that you are a certain developer or you're legitimate. Not going to talk too much about these, except I will point out that they are supported. What you do is you put the API key into a special vault using the Teams developer portal. Teams Toolkit will do this for you automatically. And then you reference the vault inside of your plugin file. So that keeps the key out of your plugin file, right, where people could see it, and secures it inside of this vault in TDP, in Teams Developer Portal. I'm going to show the same thing for OAuth, which is the more interesting scenario. But while I'm talking about API keys, I'll just quickly mention that there is a little bit of unusual way of passing the API key currently in the implementation. The API key is passed as if it were a bearer token. So there's an authorization header in HTTP, it's bearer space key. Azure Functions don't work that way. Most API key-based APIs do not work that way. So I don't know why they did it exactly, but maybe it will change. But right now, you're going to have to write your own code in the Azure function or in the API somewhere to validate that API key and Teams Toolkit will do this for you because they're doing it in kind of an unusual way that's not supported in most platforms. Let's go into OAuth. The important thing here is that, an API key, you can validate that this person is allowed to call me, but you don't know who they are. You don't know who the end user is. Every user is coming in with the same API key. So let's look at OAuth, where we actually get to identify the user, authenticate the user, and this is much more the interesting scenario. So the way this works is a client app, which is now Copilot, initiates the process. An identity provider interacts with the user to sign them in and creates this thing called a bearer token. And then the client app has to include that bearer token in every API call. Your code must then validate that token. The rub is that Microsoft does not currently have a supported library for validating tokens in Node.js or Python or anything but .NET. And this is unfortunate. You might think, oh no, MCell. No, MCell creates the token. So that's what the client app uses. If you're writing the backend, you're going to receive that token. Right now, there is a long article, aka.ms/entra-validate. I'll paste it, David. It's just as easy. David very nicely offered to paste all the links in here, but I've got it right here. So this is the link to the docs article on how to validate the token. And it's many pages long. So how do you do this, right? So just to kind of give you the skinny on this, right? So the way Teams Toolkit does, if you go into Teams Toolkit and you create a new project, yes, I want a declarative agent, I want an API, I want it authenticated with OAuth. What you get is when you're running in Azure, it pushes out this thing called EasyAuth, which is officially called Azure App Services Authentication Middleware, to authenticate. And when you're running local through the firewall, through a developer tunnel, you're not secured at all. So not only does this maybe leave that tunnel as a vulnerability, depending on what you're doing, but moreover, you end up with two plugin files, one for anonymous, one for authenticated. Waldeck MasterCards has improved on this with a sample, which is in our new repo. So I'll point you to the aka.ms Copilot Pro Dev Samples. And this one is in there. I don't have a separate link for it. What he's done is he's said, let's use the same plugin file for both. Let's go ahead and authenticate the users when we're running locally, but we're still not going to validate it because there's no supported way to do it. And so that's okay, but you notice I still have red arrows on the local development picture. So I talked to Waldeck, and he created this awesome library, which made it possible to make another sample, which is what I'm going to show you, where we're doing the validation in code. So instead of relying on EasyAuth, we're going to actually, in the Azure function, we're going to validate the each request. And to do that, rather than, I didn't follow that long article, Waldeck did. And he kindly wrote this amazing library called JWT Validate, which will validate a token from JavaScript or TypeScript. And so you're going to see how that works. So let's just jump right in because I know I'm using up my time with just slides. You want to see demos. Here we are in that Copilot Pro Dev Samples repo. And I'm just going to go in and show you. Here are the two samples we're talking about. The validated one does the validation in code. The other one is the one where locally you're not going to validate the token. So let's go into the validated one. And you can take a look at this. And this is the simplest example, right? So if you use Teams Toolkit to create a declarative agent with plugin, you're going to get this repairs thing that's just a JSON file that it's going to pull a few lines from and give it back to you. So really, really simple. Here we are looking at the same thing in VS Code. And I'm just going to go ahead and build it. And the nice thing is that Teams Toolkit has added all the provisioning of the app registration, updating Teams Developer Portal Vault, all of it, so that all you really have to do is hit F5 and it's going to come right up. Before I show the app running, let me show you bits of the code. So I'm going to start inside of the app package and show you the manifest. And so this is our favorite little Teams manifest. However, this is now wrong. This is going to be wrong any day now. So the manifest is changing. The new structure will look like this. And the reason is because we changed Copilot extensions to Copilot agents and declarative Copilots to declarative agents. So it's a bit of a rename that just happened in late September. And so that's there. And then if we look inside of that declarative agent JSON file, we can, any minute now, we can see that inside of there is some instructions and some conversation starters, just one really. Karen Blair does all the work for this company. I have no idea when she ever gets to sleep. And there's an action in here which points to the AI plugin. And the AI plugin file is where the action is, right? So this is going to define the actual API to Copilot. These descriptions are super important, by the way. But the important part here is that we're referencing the OAuth plugin vault and saying that we're going to use OAuth and that the information about the OAuth login is inside of that vault. So let's go ahead and then there's a reference to the Swagger file. So Teams Toolkit, meanwhile, created this application for me. It's an ordinary Entra Id application, but it has to be set up for web protocol and authenticate with the redirect URL pointing to this magical place in Teams where it's actually, so when it logs you in, Entra ID knows where that it's okay to send the access token or actually the auth code back. It uses auth code flow, by the way, for those of you who are into the details on that. And then the other thing that's in here is the Teams developer portal. And I can come in and notice a couple of things here. One is that you might have seen very quickly another vault for the, I didn't stop it in time. You might see another vault for the API keys. This is the one for OAuth. And you can see these are all the standard OAuth settings. If you ever set up an Azure bot framework bot with authentication, these are the same fields. I wonder if it's using the same stuff underneath. So, pretty straightforward actually to fill all this in. Notice that they've added a PKCE option now, most recently to this, which is great, which makes it just a bit more secure. So finally, if I go into my code, which is going to receive this, and then I'll run it, here is me referencing Waldeck's new JWT library. And the way this works is I'm going to get my request in to the Azure function. And it's a fairly normal thing. And the first thing it's going to do is look at the HTTP authorization header and look for a token. The syntax is bearer space token. So we do a split on space and get the token. And then we've got the validator object. You're supposed to reuse the validator object. There's a small race condition in here. So plus points to you if you can find it. It's kind of benign. We could end up with multiple validator objects if we got a bunch of requests very quickly at the beginning of starting the service. But in any case, and I'm going to fix it, but the point is that we're going to reuse that validator because it's going to cache the keys for Entra ID so that it can validate the tokens without going back for new keys every single request that comes in. And then this is the code to do the validation. So notice you can set these options and say, what do you want to validate on? I want it to be for me. The audience is saying, hey, this is for you. Nobody's trying to pawn off somebody else's token on you. And it came from where? From Entra ID. So that AAD app OAuth authority is going to point to a URL that's owned by Entra ID. And then the scope is repairs read. That's what we're allowed to do. And then we get the token, we validate the token on line 61. It will throw an exception if it's not valid. So if we get down to the lines below it, we actually have access to the user ID and username, and we can log those. So let's go ahead and run that because I know there's a limited time here. I could spend all day on this topic because there's so much to know. So here I am inside of Copilot, and I'm going to bring up that OAuth local solution, show repair records assigned to Karen Blair. And I'll do that. And first I get the permission prompt. Is it okay to call the API at all? And I'll say yes, of course. So I'll just say always allow. So hopefully it won't bother me with that every single time. Now it needs me to sign in. And so this is what the experience is like. You're not going to get prompted every time. It's going to cache these things for you. But when it needs you to log in, this is what it looks like. You get a little pop-up. It's not truly single sign-on. The part of the reason for this is that this works with non-Entra ID identity providers. So if you wanted to use this with Identity Server or Auth0 or Ping Federate or any of the other many ones, Google, any of the OAuth providers, you can do that. Notice in the log file, it says it got my name and my user ID out of there. Those came from the bearer token and were validated as being digitally signed. I guess my call to action and resources, this is this one you want to take a screenshot of. We've got the Copilot prompts repo. We've got the Pro Dev samples. The sample I just showed, basically the same stuff that you saw in the chat. And thank you for posting that again, David. I'm just going to put in a plug. We haven't officially launched this yet, but it's the longest soft launch in history. We are promoting in my team in developer advocacy something called Copilot Developer Camp, where it's a virtual workshop. You can take it today. Thank you so much, David. You can come in here and watch the videos. If you're trying to completely update, here's the September 16th presentation with Satya and Jared Spataro, where they announced the changes in direction for Copilots, mostly end user stuff, but they talk about agents. And then here's some videos, brand new videos in the last month on building agents, and then the hands-on labs. And lab E6 is add Entra ID authentication. That's where you're going to go ahead and use this stuff firsthand with a more sophisticated example. And then there's more videos and other stuff. So I really invite you to check this out. For my love of Seb Lever, I'm going to run one demo live, which means that we'll see if it works or not, right? So this is the solution to that last lab where we've built out this really, I think it's cool, demo of Trey Genie, which is the declarative agent for Trey Research, a consulting company. And it knows all about projects and who's working on projects and tracking of hours and all kinds of stuff like that. So let me just ask it a really simple question. What projects am I assigned to? The interesting thing about this question is the shortest word, I. Who are we talking to? Right? It can't really answer that question without knowing who I is, right? So I'll go ahead and sign in. And this is still kind of dog foodish, although I think it's starting to roll out more and more so that it should become more and more stable. And yes, indeed, there we are. I am assigned to these projects, and that is, kind of always available just because it knows who I am. So that is it for my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you all might have. And I thank you for joining me today. And I hope you'll come check out this Copilot Dev Camp. There's the link. Back to you, Vesa or David.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Bob, on that one. I have to call out Copilot Dev Camp is really, really cool. The presentations are high quality. There's reusable assets, all of that. And like Bob was saying, it's really for worldwide scale. So you get the presentations, you get the demos, you get the videos, you get samples and everything. So you can, if you are a, let's say, technical trainer in some other country within the world, you can actually reuse the same material. Right, Bob?
Absolutely. In fact, there's one of the little things, and since I still am on the screen, I think we have something. Oh, is it off the screen? It's we have something called Copilot Camp Developer Camp in a Box,
Yes.
So you come in here and we've got presentations, including ones with built-in video demos if you don't have access to the bits, and a smaller deck that's not, because these are huge, for sharing around. And we've got 3 presentations, a keynote, which helps you get started. Do I want a declarative agent or custom engine agent? And then deep dives into each one of those topics. And we launched in Sao Paulo last week. So we're running these in reactor centers around the world.
Yep.
So
really, really cool.
Thanks for the plug.
And demos. That's really, really cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Bob, on that one, and a great demo as well. So let me actually take over the presentation. Here we go, jumping in here, and great material. It's awesome to have that. We do acknowledge that not everybody have access on the Copilot, but it's good to have that material ready whenever people get access on the Copilot. So you can always, if you're really super interested and you want to invest yourself, you can buy yourself a tenant if you don't have a tenant, and then it's $30 per month is the Copilot license. I think that's potentially could be an option as well. There's certain rules how you can get it and buy that and all of that, but all of that can be double checked.
100%. And by the way, David, I called it Entra Id for the first 6 months, so I was also ordering off of a menu, I think, whenever I thought about Entra Id. So
Entra, yes, exactly.
I thought, hey, after the appetizer, you have Entra Id, right? Entra.
Yes.
Anyway.
Thank you, Bob, for that one. Anyway, we'll continue next week on this call with 2 cool demos. Bob is also back. We'll start with Kathy Du on latest features within the SharePoint Brand Center. This is something which can be used to manage the branding across the whole tenant. Right now, I think it's for SharePoint and Viva Connection, looking into having Clipchamp and a few other things there as well, which we talked about, Kathy, in some of the recent videos which have been going live. And there's a developer aspect on it as well. If you're a developer, you can take advantage of the settings which have been set in a tenant level within your solution. So your solution can actually adapt to those branding settings as well. And then Aisha from Bob's team, and Bob is joining us on introduction on building Microsoft 365 Copilot agents. So today it was API plugins. Next week, we're going to talk about using the Pro Developer tooling on building Microsoft 365 Copilot agents using Teams Toolkit. I think in this case, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that out loud. Now, that's on 22nd of October. So within next Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. In the meanwhile, we do have the Power Platform monthly community call happening tomorrow, and then we have the SharePoint Framework and Viva Connection community call happening on Thursday. There's a lot of other stuff. If you have questions, also you can take advantage. Also, our Discord server. If you are in Discord, this is probably the easiest way to get access on community, other people in the community, and people to ask questions. We'll try to follow up on all of the questions here as well. There's just so many locations, but again, we already have more than 2,300 people within the Discord server, which is awesome. So it's great to see the interest on this model as well. Now, we are always looking into feedback around this course, what works, what doesn't work, what I want to see, and so on. And this is super important to be able to continue these calls also in the future. So if you like the course, give us also feedback on that one. So we're able to actually show some positive feedback and remarks to our leadership that we should be continuing having these calls in the future. And no concerns on that one right now, but it's always good to think these things at once. Now, the recording will be set in the chat pretty soon when we stop the recording, but you cannot access that recording directly from the chat. The recording will be published within the Microsoft Community Learning YouTube channel within 24 hours, typically a bit faster than that, but 24 hours gives us some flexibility of getting it out later by this time as well. Tomorrow, this time as well. By this time tomorrow. Yes, English hard. Me can't talk. Not it. Anyway, of course, if you follow us on Twitter or on LinkedIn, you will get notified when the call is available. Or if you have subscribed on the YouTube channel, great way of getting notified on the new videos as well. The next call already mentioned is on October 22nd at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And that's it for this week. Thank you, David. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, TS on the great demos as well. And we'll be back within next week. In the meanwhile, let's stay in touch, stay safe, and let's keep on being active in the community. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.